Good morning. How's everybody feeling this morning? Everybody feeling good? Man, this is so exciting. Thank you guys so much for being here. Thank you, band, so much for leading us in worship this morning. Is that not incredible just to be able to sing in freedom? I absolutely love it. Listen, I want to say this. My name is Kenneth Wagner. I'm the lead pastor at United Church, and I just want to say this. Beyond anything else, I am overwhelmed that you would take out an hour and 15 minutes of your week and to be here with us. Has anybody had a good time so far? Have you guys had yeah? I am blown away and excited. This has been a journey. This has been something that has been a long time coming in my heart and in the hearts of a lot of the people you see with red shirts on. And this is something that we cannot just celebrate enough today, what is happening right here in front of us. And in July of 2013, maybe you're sitting here today and you're wondering, like, why in the world, how did this happen? Like, I got a mailer in the mail. I got an invitation that said grand opening. Like, something came to me. Somebody let me know. Somebody bought my coffee in front of me in line. Did anybody show up today because somebody bought their coffee in front of them and they checked out the website? Anybody today? Man, that's going to happen. I can't wait till that begins to happen, that we begin to just pay it forward. And this whole idea of forward over, man, this is absolutely incredible. But in July of 2013, I was sitting in a worship experience much like this, and I clearly heard God speak to me. And he said this. He said, Kenneth, he said, I want you to love Delaware until their heart beats like mine. He said, I want you to love Delaware. And it was one of those moments, listen, it was like I've had those moments in my life where, like, I've had to, like, call somebody. I've had to, like, go, Who Wants to Be a Millionaire, phone a friend, right? Like, I didn't need to phone a friend. Like, I knew beyond a shadow of a doubt that God had clearly spoken to me. He said, I want you to love Delaware until their heart beats like mine. And, man, I tell you what, since that day, it has been an absolute incredible journey. It has been one of the most amazing journeys that I've ever been on. And that day, I'd had a conversation about a month earlier that had rocked my world and had reawoken a dream in my heart. How many of you guys ever had a dream in your heart? You'd have a dream. God has, like, placed something on your heart, and you've had a dream in your heart. Maybe you didn't even know it was God. It was just a dream in your heart. And so, like, I had this dream in my heart as a sophomore in college at Southern Western University down in Central South Carolina. If you've ever been there, you went there by mistake. Okay, a couple people, yeah, okay. Central South Carolina, you sneeze, it's like, like, what just happened? You know what I'm saying? Like, you missed it, but, like, it's right near Clemson. I remember sitting in a Bible study. I played baseball there, and we started a Bible study with four guys who said that they would call themselves followers of Jesus Christ. And we decided let's start a Bible study. And so we started with four guys, and the next week there was four guys. And the next week, there were four guys, and, like, the next week, there were four guys. Like, it just kept happening. We're like, are we supposed to start a Bible study? I don't know. So we just kept being persistent, inviting our friends, inviting our guys from the baseball team. And by the end of my sophomore year and junior and senior year, we were seeing over 20 guys every Thursday night from our baseball team coming in to just literally, we read the Bible together. Lord knows none of us could teach, right? You know what I mean? None of us were in the position to teach, so we read the Bible together. And if somebody had a question, they're like, hey, I got a question. And we would do our very best to answer those questions. But I remember sitting in those apartments, and I remember there was a guy, his name was John Shulo. He was from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, so he was like still country, Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. You met those people, right? He's like, he's got the thick, we got a couple people raising their hands. You claim it? Oh, okay. So, I'm kidding. I'm from North Carolina, so it's all good. But I just remember, like, John Shulo sitting in Bible study and asking this question. He said, hey, Kenneth, I got a question for you. It was around Christmas time. We were reading the Christmas story. He said, hey, so the virgin birth, does that happen often? I was like, no, but I love your honesty, right? Like, no, but, like, I see where you're coming from. We had another guy, his name was Ben Douglas, who had a list of questions. He's like, if I'm going to give Jesus a shot, like, if I'm going to give him a shot, I've got to have all these questions answered. And I remember one day we were sitting in a worship experience much like this, and God spoke to him and said, look, Ben, you've got all these questions, but you're not even looking for the answers. And God rocked his world in that moment. And what I remember about those days more than anything is this. I remember being a part of all of that and thinking to myself, I want to be a part of a church like that one day. A church where people can ask questions, right? Is that okay? A church where people can like kick the tires, not have it all together. My life's falling apart. I just want to be a part of this. Like, and the cool thing is that's exactly what my prayer and my dream is that United Church will be. Is that this is a place where it's okay to not be okay. Like, we're okay with that. We're actually really glad you're here. Like, we're like, this is a place where you can, like, not even believe like us yet. Like, you can just kind of come and say, like, hey, I don't know about the Jesus thing, but Kenneth, I kind of like you. You know what I mean? Like, you're an all right guy. Like, you know, your wife's pretty, and so I come, you know, like, I don't care why you come, just come. No, but seriously, like, there's all these different reasons you could come, and like, maybe you don't even like the style of music that we play, but you're just intrigued by this atmosphere, and I just remember being a part of this Bible study thinking, I want to be a part of a church just like that. A church where you feel welcome. A church where, like, no matter what you've been through or where you've been, like, our arms are open, our doors are open, and they'll always be that way. Like, how many of you guys would love to be a part of a church like that? Like, that's the kind of... And I hope that this morning that you felt welcome when you walked in. I hope that our Parkers did an amazing job. I believe they did. I hope that yeah, that's awesome. Hey, I'll take that. I hope that our greeters did an amazing job. I hope that, listen, parents, we will have the kids check-in worked out next week. And so I apologize if you had to wait in line, but we will get that worked out by next week. But we want this to be a place where you feel like it's just home. Like, you didn't even know why you came. You got the mailer, and you're like, I don't know why I'm going, but I'm just going to check it out. I'm going to give God another chance. I'm going to go and see what this is like. And that's why I love that banner when you walk in. You're like, that's a massive banner. Anybody see it? Says, welcome home. Welcome home. And my prayer, our prayer, is that you felt like when you walked through the doors that you were welcome in this place. But there's something about home that elicits some feelings in our heart. You know what I mean? Like, some of us, it's an extremely negative thing, but I believe for most of us, it's kind of a positive thing. Most of us, the feeling of home is a feeling of comfort. It gives us a feeling of safety. It evokes emotions unlike anything else. Home engages the senses, right? Like, how many of you guys can remember what the house you grew up in smelt like? Like, I know that's weird, but yeah, we got one hand. Let's be honest. This is Sunday, so it's Tell the Truth Sunday, all right? How many of you guys remember what your house smelt like when you walked in? Come on. All right, so it evokes emotions. I still remember to this day what the house that I spent the most time in growing up, 2503 Kentwood Court, I remember what it smelt like when I walked in. Like, I could probably walk you through the halls with my eyes closed without stumping my toe, you know what I mean? Which I couldn't do when I woke up in the middle of the night to go to the bathroom, but I could probably do that now. Like, it evoked, like, I remember the sounds. Anybody remember the sounds? Like, we had the water baseboard heaters, you know what I mean? And I'd be home alone, and I'd be like getting my machete out. You know what I mean? Like, we're about to take care of business. Somebody's coming to my house. You know, like, I remember all the pops and cracks and the smells and the sights and the sounds. But there's just sometimes when you don't feel welcomed at home. Anybody ever been there? Like, there's just I don't know what it is for you, but like, I'll tell you in a minute when I didn't feel welcomed at home. But there's just some times where we don't feel welcome at home. Maybe it was when you got in an argument with your parents. Maybe like your brother or sister. How many have a younger brother or sister? Like, you just want to, like, yes, you're like, you like let them have it every now and then, right? Like, you were like giving them the business, you know? So like, you got in an argument, you were fighting with your brother or sister. Maybe it was after college when you moved back in, you're like, this is a great idea. I'll move back in after college. And 2 weeks later, you're like, this is a horrible idea. How do I get out of here? Like, without this being awkward. Maybe it was when you brought home a bad report card or bad news. I don't know what it was for you, but I remember one time distinctly, I didn't feel welcome at home. And this is probably the only time I didn't feel welcome at home is when I missed curfew. I miss curfew. Come on, you've been there before. Students, let me just give you a time. If you're a student here and you drive, if you're under the age of 18, let me give you 2 pieces of advice. This is free. You don't have to pay for it. All right. If your curfew is 11 p.m. and you leave at 11:05, you will never be on time. It will not, like, Back to the Future was a movie, right? Like, it doesn't happen. Like if you leave at 11:07, there is no matter how hard you pray on the way down 13, like you will not be on time, right? Like it's just not gonna happen. And let me give you another piece of advice. The second thing is this. If your mom or dad texts you and says, "Are you on your way home?" and you are watching the fourth quarter of a basketball game, and you reply yes, you lied, right? You are not, like they mean in the car, ignition started, driving down the road. Are you on your way home? Like that's just free, 2 pieces of advice. But I remember one day it was late. I remember my curfew. I don't remember what the curfew was that night, but I was whipping around my little 1993 Acura Integra. I thought I was the man, you know what I'm saying? Like I was just whipping through the streets of High Point, North Carolina, and I looked at the clock, and I just remember pleading and begging God to turn back time. You know, he made the sun stand still one time in Joshua, and hoping he could do it again, you know, and like I'm just praying, God, could you just do a miracle? And I remember whipping into my neighborhood, taking a right, taking another right, and then whipping into my long driveway to the left, and I remember seeing the light on, which was normal, but then I remember seeing the door open with the light on and a silhouette. I was like, first one was normal, second one, however, was not. And I knew this this is like, you know when things just slow down, it's like, "Ruh." So I had a chance to think about it. I'm like, all right, if it's mom, I can work this. And she's here, right? Yep, she's here, yep. But I could work this. I could like, Mom, you don't understand. Like, I mean, like, my car broke down. Like, this guy stopped and helped me. Like, you know, like, there was a herd of buffalo. You know what I mean? I just had to wait for him. And like, I knew I could work the system. But as I got closer, it was very evident that it was not my mom standing in the door. It was my father. And let's just say the same business didn't work with Dad, right? Like, let's just be honest. He wasn't the pushover that my mom was. And I don't really remember what happened after that point. I think God shields our memory, you know what I mean, of disasters. But I remember thinking about this. What are my parents, and this is kind of a silly illustration, but like, what are my parents gonna think of me? Like when I walk in the door or when he meets me in the driveway, what are they gonna think of me? Like, I didn't do this on purpose, I don't think, and like, I tried my best. Like, what in the world is gonna happen? And I just remember, like having that thought go through my mind, and maybe for you, let me just be real, and let's be honest in here for a moment. Maybe for you, it wasn't missing curfew. Maybe it was a little bit more serious, why you didn't feel welcomed at home. Like maybe you didn't feel like it was something a little bit more severe than my story. Like you just did something, you really maybe felt like you blew it, and for some reason you didn't feel welcome at home. You see, here's the deal, is this morning I don't know your story, and you don't know mine much yet. But I do know this, is that on September 20th, 2015, every single one of us filed into the Short Center for the Arts in downtown Dover. And we're all alike in this respect, is that we all have a story. Every single one of us. We showed up to this place, whether it be a laundry list of awesome things, a laundry list of things that we would like to forget. The reality is that every single one of us show up with a story. And I think it's one thing when that story begins to be about like what we have to tell our parents. But I think it escalates a little bit more when we start to like give those same thoughts to how will God feel about me when he finds out who I really am? Like when God sees like everything I've done, like when he sees the list roll out of good, bad, indifferent, all these different things roll out, like what will he think of me? We see a story that's an incredible story. You see, these are very real thoughts that we bring to the Schwartz Center this morning as United Church, and these are very real thoughts. Today we're going to look at what we do when we find ourselves here. And so today I want us to take a look at a passage in the book of Luke. Luke was a physician who took special care to detail. I've met a lot of doctors, PhDs, but I've also met a lot of my mother-in-law is a dean of business. She's a doctor, and doctors don't play around. You know what I mean? Like when you meet your mother-in-law and she's Dr. Carnes, that's pretty intimidating. Would somebody agree with me? I'm like, all right, hey, Larry, how are you doing? This is Dr. Carnes. Oh, okay. I've got a bachelor's. Nice to meet you. You know what I mean? You instantly feel like less, but she's not like that at all, but some doctors are. But Luke took a special care to detail, and we're going to look at a passage from the book of Luke, Luke chapter 15. We're going to be starting in verse 11. This is an incredible story. This is incredible picture, a word picture painted for us that I want all of us to take note of, because I believe that it will land on each of us in a different manner, in a different way. But I believe that this is relevant for every single person from the front row to the back row and everywhere in between. I believe that this is relevant for all of us. So as we jump into Luke chapter 15, verse 11, it says this. It says, "And he said, there was a man who had 2 sons. And the younger of them said to his father, 'Father, give me the share of property that is coming to me.' And he divided his property between them. And not many days later, the younger son gathered all he had and took a journey into a far country. And there he squandered his property in reckless living." This guy was young and reckless. Verse 14. "And when he had spent everything, a severe famine arose in that country, and he began to be in need. And so he went and hired himself out to one of the citizens of that country, who sent him into the fields to feed pigs. And he was longing to be fed with the pods that the pigs ate, and no one gave him anything." As we read this passage, I want us to keep in mind this one thing, that culturally, this was completely backwards. Like, this guy had literally, in a roundabout way, looked at his father and said this, "Dad, you're dead to me." Like, "Dad, you're dead to me." Like, imagine this. Imagine if your father's still living and you were to go to him and say, "Dad, hey, look, this is, I know, like, you've got a really great boat. Like, I really like your boat. Like, you've got a lake house. That's great. And you've got a lot of cool toys. But here's what I was thinking yesterday. Like, what if, I've got a brother, Jason, he's awesome. But what if you just sold everything? How about that? Is that a cool idea? Like, Dad, would that work for you? Like, just sell everything, and if you could, just divide it right in half and give it to me now. I mean, I'm 29. Let me live it up now, right? Like, let me take advantage of this now. How do you guys think that would go over for me? What would happen if you said it to your dad? Let's just ask that. Like, I don't know about you, my dad would literally probably slap the poo out. He'd be like, "Are you serious? Like, no way. Like, are you out of your mind?" I can't imagine what this dad was thinking as this son was asking him. But here's the crazy thing, is that that's not what this father did at all. Like, this father gave his son the choice. The son's request was preposterous. Like, this was out of line and out of control and completely like unreasonable in every shape and form. He said, "Dad, would you sell everything and just give me half?" Verse 17, we pick up here. It says, "But when he came to himself, he said, 'How many of my father's hired servants have more than enough bread? But I perish here, I die here with hunger. I will arise and go to my father, and I will say to him, Father, I have sinned against heaven and before you.' He said, 'I am no longer worthy to be called your son. Treat me as one of your hired servants.' And he arose and came to his father." You see, this part of this story reminds me of what we were talking about earlier when we were talking about being late for curfew. Like, how often do we start to do the very same thing that this son did? He said, "All right, I'm going to go back to my father. I'm going to say, look, you could just hire me on as a servant. And I'm just going to say, hey, Father, I have sinned against heaven and against you." How many of you guys have ever tried to make an unreasonable excuse when you've been late for curfew, right? Like, I was meeting with somebody one time, literally, and I was like going to meet them at Chick-fil-A, not to be named, but he's in the auditorium today, and I'm not going to call him out because that would be really embarrassing. And we were supposed to meet at noon. He shows up at 12:30, right? His house was 8 minutes away from Chick-fil-A. He says to me, Kenneth, like, there was literally, I said this earlier, but this was his excuse, and he was kidding, I hope. He said, there was this herd of buffalo that I had to wait for. And I was like, "Nick, I'm sorry. I was like, are you serious? Like, you can't be serious. Like, we were supposed to meet at noon. It's 12:30, and you live 8 minutes away. You left after you were supposed to be. Are you kidding me?" But how many times have we come up with an unreasonable explanation? We've thought to ourselves, all right, if I just say this, like I remember thinking to myself this way, like I'll just tell them my gas tank was on E. And so I had to stop by the Exxon. That's why I was late, right? Like I was really caught up. My girlfriend's dad was talking to me. That's why I was late. Yeah, right. Unreasonable excuses. You see, I'm certain that in a room this size, that the same feelings that you had when you were late for curfew are the same feelings that some of you had this morning as you were preparing to come to United Church. Like, what if they ask me what my life's been like? Like, what if they ask me where I've been? Like, what if they ask me, like, what's been happening in my life? Like, have you not been in church? What if they begin to ask all of these questions? And I know that in a room this size, that if we could just be honest with ourselves, no show of hands, because I don't want to be awkward for you, but maybe some of you had that feeling this morning. You're getting dressed and you're sitting there thinking, why in the world am I even giving church another shot? Like, why in the world would I even show up to this brand new church? I don't even know the pastor. I don't even know the people that are like helping him out. There's a lot of red shirts. That seems really weird. Like, what's that about? Like, you're thinking to yourself, like, what's going on? Like, what will they think about me? And I guarantee you that's where this son found himself as he was in this story. And I love this in verse 20, the second part of verse 20. It says, and he arose and came to his father. But while he was still a long way off, his father saw him and felt compassion and ran and embraced him and kissed him. And the son said to him, Father, I have sinned against heaven and before you. I am no longer worthy to be called your son. But the father said to his servants, bring quickly the best robe and put it on him. Put a ring on his hand and shoes on his feet, and bring the fattened calf and kill it, and let us eat and celebrate. For this my son was dead and is alive again. He was lost and is found, and they began to celebrate. I imagine there was dancing. Like, it was crazy. Like, they were going bananas in this story. And I love this when we read this. He says, Father, I've sinned against heaven and against you. And I love what the father does. The father doesn't sit there and try to have a reasonable conversation with him. He completely ignores him. That's ridiculous. Like, he had spent half of his life savings. He had spent it all on reckless living, it says. And he's come back to the father. Father, I've sinned against heaven and before you. And the father doesn't even respond. Are we serious? It says, but while he was still a long way off, the father saw him and felt compassion, ran and embraced him. Those are strong words. He saw him. He felt compassion. He ran. In that culture, no men ran. Embraced him. He kissed him. And the son said to him, Father, I've sinned against heaven before you. I'm no longer worthy to be called your son. But the father said to his servants, bring quickly the best robe. Put it on him, put a ring on his hand and shoes on his feet. You see, in this story, the robe stands for honor. The ring stands for authority. And the shoes stand for a son and not a slave. Shoes were for freedom. Pastor Kenneth, you have no clue what I've done. Like, you don't know what my list is as it rolls out onto the stage or rolls out onto the front. You have no clue what I've done. You have no clue how bad it is, what the series of events that have led me to this place. You have no clue. God would never forgive me. There's no way. And I would say this, is that you don't know the love of the Father. The love of the Father transcends all of that. I imagine the Father sitting in a rocking chair on a porch daily. I imagine if I had a rocking chair here, I would illustrate this, but I don't, so I'll stand. I imagine him sitting on the rocking chair, legs crossed, sipping a cup of Dunkin' Donuts. It's my story, all right? My imagination. If you like Starbucks, dude, you're drinking Starbucks. I'm drinking Dunkin' right now. But I imagine him sitting in the rocking chair. And I imagine him see his son crest the hill from a long way off. The son crests the hill. There's no trespassing sign. There's no sign that says, don't even think about coming back here. If you're my younger son, don't even bother. No, there's none of that. There's no crazy guards or security or anything like that. No, it says that the father was waiting for him. He was sitting possibly on his front porch drinking a cup of coffee. He saw him a long way off, and it says he stood up and he ran to him. It doesn't say he ran and stopped halfway and said, come on, figure the rest out. No, it says the father went all the way. He went all the way. You're like, no, this is preposterous. This is crazy. This is out of control. In verse 20, it says, but while he was still a long way off, listen, the father pursued him. The father ran after him. And this is exactly the vision of United Church. Our vision is to see people who are far from God being united with Christ, not just people who are kind of okay. You grew up in church. I mean, we love those people too, or like I'm a goody two-shoes. We love those people too. But we want to see people who are far from God, people who have never experienced church. They've never experienced the love of God. They've never experienced the love of the Father, and they get to come in this place week after week and just experience a place that just says, welcome home. Welcome home. There's no pretense. There's no in and around game. There's no let me bait and switch. There's none of that. All we want to do is just say, welcome home. Welcome home. Our arms are open. Our doors are wide open. This place is for you. Imagine with me turning onto your driveway after you've missed curfew. You know you've missed curfew. You blew it. It's not 11:05, it's 11:25. And your parents frantically running down the driveway. Oh, I'm so excited you're here. This is so good. Oh, wow. You're late. I'm excited. Oh, wow, how did you get here so late? Hey, get the Louis Vuitton. Get the Apple Watch. Come on, get the new fresh pair of KDs. Let's celebrate. Yay. It's irrational, right? But that's Jesus. His grace is irrational. His grace is sufficient. His grace goes beyond anything you've ever done. You're like, oh, you don't know what I've done. Yes, I don't know what you've done. And listen, quite frankly, Jesus doesn't care. He wants you. Welcome home. Welcome home. Listen, you don't have to get close and get cleaned up, go 3/4 of the way. You don't even have to go halfway. You don't have to go 1/10 of the way. All you simply have to do is right where you're standing. The Father's here is just turn. And He's going to run 100% of the way. Not 99, and stop and say, hey, when you figure that out, we'll be good. When you work that out, I'm all right. I'll be good with you then. You turn around and say, Father, I have sinned against heaven and against you. And at that moment, it's done. You're restored into right relationship with the Creator of the universe. Some of you wondered what we would preach today. Some of you wondered what we would talk about today. Quite frankly, all I'm concerned about is Jesus and the Bible. And so week after week, you'll find we're going to teach Jesus and the Bible. We believe that's where hope comes from. We believe that's where direction is found. And so we're going to unashamedly preach out of the Word of God. We're going to offer hope. We're going to say, welcome home. And so this morning, This morning I want to say this. I just want to ask you to bow your head and close your eyes where you are. Right where you sit. Right where you sit. I want to ask this. Today you came in not even having a clue what to expect, not even knowing what to really think about a new church and church that's meeting in downtown, a church that's meeting at the Short Center. But today, maybe you've been running so far, so fast. And this morning, what I want you to know is that right where you sit, right where you stand, God is running right with you. He's saying, just give me a shot. This morning, all you would have to say is this: Father, I have sinned against heaven and against you. And at that moment, people would say, oh, no, that's cheap grace, Kenneth. No, that's true grace. You can't cheapen grace. It's irrational already. It doesn't make sense.
You good there?
It's crazy that God would trade all of his righteousness for all of our stuff, all of our story. And so this morning I want to ask, if today you walked into the auditorium and you've heard something that you've never heard before. You've heard of a hope, of a relationship, of a Father who would just take care of it all. I want to ask you if today you would just say, Father, I've sinned against heaven and against you. And if that's your heart today, you've never prayed that prayer before, you've never asked Jesus to save you, to make you new, and you want to make that decision today, I just want to ask all over the auditorium, would you shoot your hand up? Say, that's me, Kenneth. Come on. Keep them up. Nobody's looking around. Awesome. You can put them down. If you raise your hand, I just simply in your heart, I want you to say, Father, I have sinned against heaven and against you. God, help me to live for you. Help me to be the person that you've created me to be. Thank you for saving my life. But there's another person in the room this morning. You've been running so far and so fast. You are the prodigal. This morning, I want to just give you the opportunity. Say, I'm coming back. I'm turning. The Father's running. If this morning that's you, you would say, Kenneth, that's me, man. I've been running. I have turned away from God. I have turned away from God. I've done some crazy things I'm not proud of. If that's you this morning, and you say, I just want to turn around. Father, I've sinned against heaven against you, and I want to make, you don't have to get saved again. There's no such thing the first time took. But you just want to say, I want to live for you, Jesus, all the days of my life. If that's you, I just want you to shoot your hand up in the auditorium. I'm returning. Come on. It's so good. You can put them down. Pastor Mark's going to give you some instructions here in a few minutes, but I want to say this. Everybody can look up at me. If you made the decision this morning to follow Jesus, to say, I'm stepping out, I'm turning around, Father, I've sinned against heaven and you, I want you to know that you've made the greatest decision of your life. You will never once regret it. Yeah. One of our core values at United Church is this idea that we're in this together. We're in this together. And so if you made that decision today, there's a couple things I want you to do. I want you to make that public. You got to experience guide on the way in. If you would just turn that over, check what box pertains that you gave your life to Jesus, or that maybe you're just coming home. Just write that over to the side. You're just restoring that relationship with God. We would love to help you, give you resources. Also, on the second floor, there's some free Bibles. If you don't have a free Bible, we would love to give you a free Bible. If you've never had a Bible, you can get one today. We would be honored to give you that. So we're going to sing this song. And I want to challenge you, if you just want to stay seated, that's fine. Engage however you want. The T-shirts aren't being given away yet, so don't leave the place. The kids are probably still having the time of their life right now. Look, I just want to say this before we get into this song. Your kids are being well taken care of right now. We've got one of the most incredible kids teams. Yeah, one of the most incredible kids teams.